Most of the presenters are not worried about making the presentation, but they are worried about the questions that the audience might throw at them. And if you are one of them, this is the video you must see. Hi, I am Arvind Kivesra. I am a coach, trainer, and author of the book 11 Secrets of Effective Speaking. And today I am going to share with you how to handle questions. Now, the questions that comes to us as presenters could be 1. Something that we know the answer for. 2. Something that we don't know the answer for or are not sure about. And 3. Something that we know the audience is asking us just to pull our legs. And in each of these cases, we need to know how to handle them. When the question is something that we know the response to, it's fairly simple, isn't it? You just simply respond. But before responding to a question, a few simple things or a few simple techniques can actually help us get a hang of what we want to respond and respond appropriately. The first thing when you get a question is smile. Because when we are listening to the question, it's quite possible we might get a bit tensed up. There might be a certain amount of nervousness creeping in because we don't know what to expect. When we smile, that nervousness dissipates. It also builds confidence in the eyes of our audience. Second, make sure we repeat the question. Need not necessarily repeat it using the same words that we used to ask this, but at least paraphrase. This ensures that we have understood the question exactly the way the person who asked it meant it to be. But more importantly, while doing this, we get that fraction of a second or a few seconds to actually think of the answer in the background and maybe even word it appropriately so that it is more meaningful to the audience. Now, when it comes to questions where we may not know the answer, please do not bluff. Sometimes it's better to say I don't know rather than to beat around the bush, because the audience is very smart. And in these days, with Google at the tip of our fingers, if we try to bluff, there are people in the audience who are going to be able to go there to Google, search out, and stand up and say, you know what, you're wrong because Google says this. So if you don't know the answer, I think it's a very fair thing. Of course, one does expect you to know answers for the main topic that you're speaking about. But having said that, if there are questions around that topic or maybe not directly related to the topic, you may choose to answer, or you may choose to say, since it is out of the scope, can we take it later? Or you might want to say, I'm not very sure about the answer, but I can check and get back to you. The important thing here is, when we commit that we are going to get back to the audience, it is imperative that we do get back. Many speakers think, now it was a big audience, how does it matter even if whether I go back or not? But let's remember, it's a very small world, and the credibility of a speaker is depending on whether he stays with his word or not. So if you have committed, find out the details, whatever, whether it's a phone number or an email ID, send the response by the time that you have committed. Worst case, if you still don't have an answer, at least do respond back by saying, I was expected to answer this question, but unfortunately I still don't have a response. Is it okay if I get back to you in another 3 days? That is provided you want to dig further into it, or you might just stop at that so that the other person knows that he should not be expecting anything from you anymore. When we know that there is a question which is there to pull our leg, which is a third scenario, now that's something we need to be able to handle carefully. You might find certain people who, just for the sake of irritation, or maybe showing off, or maybe just harassing you, could be asking you silly, stupid questions, which also means it's wasting the time of your audience as much as it is yours. Now, in this case, you can use the audience to handle this person rather than directly confronting with this gentleman. All you can do is, maybe a couple of times you might say, this question is not so relevant. Is it okay if we take it after the session? Or, in the interest of time, is it alright with you if we take this after the session is over? Now, in both these cases, if the person is just out there to make fun of you, I can assure you he's not going to come back to you after the session is over. And if you're serious about it, great. There's one more interesting question for us to know about, and whether we know the answer or not, we can handle it the way I explained earlier. It tells us there is something more that we need to prepare, which is a good learning for us anyways. But there might be cases where we know for sure the other person is doing it just to make mockery of you or just to harass you. And here, what I normally do is use the psychology that we had in schools. If you remember, when it was time for the class lecture to get over, if somebody asked a question at that point in time, how irritated each one of us would get there. In fact, when such a question comes to you, just go back to the audience. Friends, would you like me to answer this question now or later? Because it might take 5 to 10 minutes, which means our session may get extended. And most of the people in the audience are going to say, no, take it later, because they are anyways not interested in that session. But when it comes to questions, nobody is expecting you to be prepared. And if you can answer them really well, that's when your credibility shoots up. So use this opportunity, welcome the questions, and don't be afraid of saying I don't know, because if it's a topic that was not planned to be covered, it's okay to say I don't know. Just be careful. Don't say I don't know even for the subject that you are brought in as an expert. So be discreet about it and use it. There's no harm in being vulnerable, because that's what makes you more human. That's what makes you more relatable. So, do you have any questions? Because I'm waiting for them if you have, and I'm eager to respond to those questions. Like I said, they will help me build my knowledge as much as it will help everybody else who's going to read it in your comments. Thank you.